There are people who make you smile, and then there are people that really make you laugh and warm your heart in such a positive way. My next guest, Meghan Potter, is that person. I have actually followed Megan for a while because her handle on Instagram is at lead like a lady underscore. And I was like, what is this? Right. So obviously for my community, the ripplecentral.com/pond, POND, that's our community. We have we have a desire to bring great content to our women ripplers because we have this wow space in the community called Women Optimizing Women. So I initially thought I'd reach out to her to just be an interview for there, but then the more that I followed her and the more I, dove into her content, the more I realized that the podcast was the best place to start because she is just such a phenomenal young woman. She has such a amazing and such an attractive spirit. One that just really I can see why she's such a great coach because she is so easy to talk to. And she talks about a little pillow that she has in her office as a good reminder of what her superpower is. I love that. You're going to love that. And you're just going to love her energy, her enthusiasm, sense of humor, and just the overall vibe. She's just such a kind person. And I have a sneaking suspicion that we are going to find avenues to work and support one another in more projects, and I can't wait. But I can't wait for you to experience this conversation because it was that good. She's just such a rock star that I am just so grateful she made the time. We did this on a Saturday because her schedule was super busy. She's got two very active teenagers and a 2-year old at home and a growing, very successful coaching practice. And so scheduling time to get this interview in had to be in between school activities and naps. And Saturday ended up being the best day for her. And I was so grateful that she made the time. Think you will be as well. So let's dive into this interview with Meghan Potter. Meghan, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I am great. I am great today. Beautiful day. Just got back from the park with my toddler who did not want to leave the park, but it is what it is.
Blame me. I apologize. I'm sorry. We're doing this on a Saturday because I know you have a busy schedule, and this was
Oh,
about the only time that you could work it in.
pretty
How many
much.
kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, how many kids do you have?
I got two stepdaughters
Okay.
and one biological son.
All right.
So one of the girls is at a volleyball tournament today. The other one is out terrorizing the neighborhood with her gang of friends. And the other one is napping.
Well, there you go. I mean, everybody's accounted for. It's,
Yep.
hopefully it remains a chill Saturday for you and good luck in the
Oh,
volleyball tournament to your daughter.
thanks.
That's a big one, I know.
Yeah,
So,
they won their first game this morning, so
oh, that's great. Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic. Well, I always I consider myself very fortunate. I get to meet so many amazing people, and I've actually followed you for a while on Instagram before I actually reached out. I just love your vibe. I love what you're doing. One of the things that we'll talk about maybe after we get this podcast out is having you come back to our community because one of the things that we do for my ripplers is we actually have a space dedicated to women. It's called Wow, Women Optimizing Women. And that is actually why I sort of started following you because I loved your handle so much. Lead like a lady. Tell us
Oh,
about that.
it kind of just came to me one afternoon. So I started doing this because I have just worked for way too many senior management who were never taught how to lead people. They're
Okay.
great at their jobs. They can run a business really well, but managing the people, they really seem to struggle. And so I was like, I really want to snag people right at the beginning, um, and show them just the basics, like the fundamentals for leading people. And then I thought about it some more and I was like, and the biggest upswing we're seeing in the corporate world is women entering into these executive roles.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I really like to focus on what it is like to be a woman going through this process, because there are extra challenges, especially from like an emotional, we're just a
Yeah.
little extra compassionate, a little bit extra empathetic, and that can kind of sometimes cloud us a little bit.
Sure.
Um, And so I was like, I was just sitting there thinking, and the alliteration kind of came to me. And I love the idea of a lady. Like
Yeah.
she holds herself with grace and with poise, and she shows respect to the people around her. Um, she's not putting her emotions first. She's a steady representation out in society kind of thing. I don't want people to think that, like, to be a lady, you have to be all like, because that's not what it is. Like, I think it probably came from I had just finished rewatching at the time. I just finished rewatching Bridgerton, and I was just like, some of those ladies, man, they're just such badass ladies. And,
Yeah.
if they given the chance, they would have ruled
The
society
world.
at the time, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
they would have, and if you think about it, they kind of do from the background. Like, they're in
Absolutely.
all of their sitting rooms, and they're like to their men, and then their men go out in public, and they're like, "Shouldn't do this." And it just kind of came to me, and I was just like, you know what? The grace, and one of the nicest compliments I have ever received was from someone I used to work with. It was a colleague. I have huge respect for her, but she was like, "You just seem to lead with grace and apparent ease." And like
Ah,
that was in the of my mind. And I was like, how do I encompass that? And it was just something I was like, it's very ladylike. Just
yep.
be very ladylike. And so, yeah. And then the alliteration. And I liked that.
And so it's a winning combination. I love that you
Mhm.
focused on that. I love that you tied that, and there's the why behind it, I think, which is really inspiring. I think that's
Mhm.
fantastic. What do you sense, obviously, from your work? We'll look kind of macro and then we can look micro, but like what is the problem today with modern day leadership, do you feel? Or some of the challenges that you see companies, kind of dealing with?
From my experience, I think the biggest thing is that we see these people with great potential, and they're really great at their jobs. They're fantastic at their jobs,
Yeah.
knocking it out of the park, and then we go, we want you to move up the ladder because we think you can take on more responsibility and we think that you can handle this and whatever. And then we just throw people into the deep end. And we're like, here's a team of 5 people,
Good
10
luck.
people,
Yeah.
however
Yep.
many people,
Yeah.
figure it out. And
Yeah.
like, there doesn't seem to be any, unless you take it upon yourself and take the initiative to find a coach or a mentor, um, or to read the books or to listen to the podcasts or whatever, to grow yourself and learn how to handle all of these people and their lives, because like there's no such thing. I don't think you can leave life at the door.
Yeah.
It's always coming with you. And so we don't teach anyone how to like lead a successful team, and how to delegate and how to provide feedback so that our retention rate is high
Yeah.
and our people want to come to work. And
Yeah.
what I feel like so many people are missing is that if we took the time to invest in our people, our businesses would just boom.
Yes.
Because if people care about their work and they want to go to work and they like their jobs and they like who they work with and who they work for, they're gonna put in extra effort without even thinking about it,
That's right.
right? And so I think that's where like right off the hop, we fail our new leaders and make it really hard for them to become great leaders.
That's a really valid point, and I agree wholeheartedly. Kind of makes me think of what I talk about when I have the opportunity to either train at a company or do a keynote. I always tell whatever audience I'm presenting to that very few of us actually had the luxury of coming out of school and into that first job, and somebody taking us by the hand and saying, "Come on, kid, let me show you how to get along with the other kids in the sandbox." Right?
Yeah.
And one of the challenges there is that if you're not super good at it at the lower levels or in those early days of your career, there, the companies miss out on a whole lot of potential. But then, like you say, you find somebody that's really good at the job, the blocking and tackling, the day-to-day execution,
Mhm.
in organizations, they're looking for that next leader. So, like you said, they promote them a little too quickly and they don't give them the resources or the
Yeah.
necessary training to deal with it. And if they come from that perspective of, hey, I'm not necessarily a people person, or I'm not necessarily a good communicator, or I'm not really super empathetic. Now elevating that into a role where now you've got even more power, but the
Mhm,
pressure is on you to deliver on the results. It's like
mhm,
it's kind of a crashing of crisis at that point, and that's why you see a lot of burnout in terms of
mhm,
leadership. Speaking specifically to women, the thing that I see is, and I'm a huge supporter of, women in leadership positions. In fact, I think they make better leaders in a lot of cases than men. And I think one of the challenges that they have is they have so much responsibility that they carry in before they ever walk in the corporate door, right? I mean,
mhm,
they tend to, just by the nature of
mhm,
all the pressures and challenges outside of the job. So then you combine that now into a working role.
mhm,
um, I have just mad respect for women that do can live both of those lives. My wife has been our CFO for a couple of my companies for the entire time we've been married, and I'm just blown away by, to use your word, the grace and elegance, right? That she can show up, do her job, and then
mhm.
still manage to, keep all the other plates outside of the company spinning. I I feel like I'm a doer, but I'm just not that big a doer. So, I'm like, how do you guys do it?
I
It blows me away.
I don't even know some days. Honestly, I think it's a game of give and take. Like
Yeah,
some days the home life has to slip through the cracks so that the work life can excel and vice versa. And again, in my experience, and I've seen this a lot in the social media world, but for women who wish to excel in a leadership position, you either have no partner
yeah,
or an incredibly supportive partner. And that is the only way you can make it work.
yeah,
Because without a supportive partner helping pick up what falls through the cracks at
yeah.
home, right? There's no way. There's absolutely no way. And my hat goes off to all the single moms out there
Oh,
who
yeah,
are doing it because that is an extra level of challenge that
yeah.
I
Well,
can't
and
even imagine.
like you said, I think one of the things that is really helpful is to have somebody that's there on the side that can pick up the slack. But also, I
Mhm.
think, and I actually just heard this on a podcast this morning when I was on a bike ride about people that get in the mud and the muck, right? Get struggle with something in some capacity.
Mhm.
A lot of times, they were actually talking about the dynamics between men and women, which is kind of ironic. I was listening to this just sort of as a random episode,
Yeah.
and wasn't in preparation for today's conversation, but it's funny how it actually sort of informs my school of thought here, in that they were talking about how women tend to sit with a problem and they'll sit in the mud. They don't tend to complain a ton. They might complain to other women, close friends, colleagues, but
Yeah.
they generally don't unburden any of the challenges, even to their partners, right? Or
Right.
sometimes even just family. But men, when they see their partner struggling, they have a tendency to want to, like, let's get it done, let's get it fixed, right? And that's
Mhm.
not what women need when they're going through it, or where they're struggling. Sometimes they don't need you to say a thing, they just need you to listen and to hear.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think about the work I do in communication and the dynamics there. I thought that was really important, because it's not even just limited to, say, a romantic relationship or a family relationship, but that also extends to teams as well. And
Mhm.
having the ability to have someone that you can just count on to hear what's going on, listen to the problem or the challenge that might be going there, but there's not an immediate tendency to jump in and try to get that quick fix and, solve it, move on. I think
Mhm.
for men, because we so not trying to generalize for a lot of men, but most of us are emotionally dumb, right? So we just kind of want to, like, okay, what's the problem? How do we dive in and fix it so we can move on? And that's not the best approach. And so I just thought it was really interesting as they were talking about both the home dynamic and then ultimately how it kind of sort of pervades back into the working environment and the
Mhm.
challenges. And it was interesting because this subject matter expert was talking about, normally when women advance up the ranks into leadership roles, their circle gets even smaller. They don't have those people that they can depend on as those
Mhm.
go-to resources. Relationships change and alter, especially if now you've been promoted within this company and you've left colleagues behind that you considered really good work or business friends, right? There's some
Mhm.
dynamic there that becomes challenging. What do you see in your work about, those issues, and how to deal with that from within the corporate wall, but then how to unpackage that at home later, right? To
Right.
just to be able to deal with some of the stresses and challenges.
Well, to your point about, sometimes it doesn't need an answer. I have had huge success when people come to me and they're like, Megan, I have a problem. And I go, okay, what do you need from me? Do you need me to fix it? Or do you need me to just listen? Like, do you just need to vent this out of your system
Yeah.
so that you can clear your head and move on because you know how to solve the problem? Um, or do you need me to solve it? And most often, people just need to vent it out. And usually, through their venting it out, the solution comes to them. They're like, oh, I can do that.
And you get all the credit for and you didn't say anything, right?
I didn't do anything. Um, I try really hard not to solve my people's problems for them.
Sure.
Most of my background comes from the hotel and hospitality industry, very customer facing. Um, and most often they don't need me to solve the problem. They might need me to give them this stamp of approval that yes, you
Yeah.
can do that,
Nice
but
job.
usually they
Yeah.
can figure out what needs to be done to make the customer happy, right? Um, so yeah, usually it's just a what do you need from me? And you know, I'll admit I'm not great at that at home. At home. I come home and I vent away, and my partner, he's getting better. He definitely gets better. And he's starting to ask, "Do you need me to fix this, or are we just talking?" And, sometimes I'm like, "Would you do?
Yeah.
Would you do in this
Yeah.
situation?" Just for a different perspective, like, how would you solve this problem? And, he and I have very different approaches. He's very direct, whereas I would be like, "Okay, so I know that this person's going through this, and they're having this challenge over here, and so I want to approach it so that like they'll be receptive to what I'm saying." Whereas he's just like, no, no, this is our problem, we need to find a solution, what do you think?
Yeah.
And sometimes that works,
Yeah.
sometimes that works really well, but no, for me it's more, okay, let's look at this person as a whole person. Okay, I know that their cat just died and they're moving and they got in a huge fight with their boyfriend, and it's like, okay, and now they've come to work, and I know they can solve this. I know they can solve this problem, but like the way that they want to solve it is not how I want to solve it, and it's just I try and come at it from like a holistic perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I get home,
All
yeah,
bets are off.
all bets are off. I may like my partner set does say like I lead the household, but sometimes I just throw my hands in there. I'm like, it's someone else's turn today.
Yeah. Done. I'm out.
I'm out. I'm gonna sit right here. I'm gonna doom scroll on Instagram. Let me
Yeah.
know when dinner's ready.
I love it. Well, we talked about it from a kind of a macro perspective, but let's look micro for a second. And what do you say to women that you're working with, clients that you're engaged with, about maybe even when they haven't yet achieved a leadership role, how to exude that leadership and what they do and how they show up? What advice would you give? Where by the time this comes out, we'll have a lot of folks that are graduating and starting to take on that first big
Mhm.
professional job. So, how
Yeah.
do you distinguish yourself in those early days and still feel really good about what you're contributing? But
Mhm.
how do you start to exude that leadership quality, in
You
your
don't
opinion?
need Yeah, you don't need a title to be a leader, for
Yeah.
sure. I know a lot of people feel that way, but you can be a leader right from the hop. I think back to my early days, and a lot of it is just taking the initiative. Showing that you want to help your colleagues, you want to help train the new person, you want to assist with a project, you want to, you might not necessarily be allowed at the decision making table, but like you would love to hear what's happening and give your 2 cents to your leader in your one on one or whatever. I find a lot of it though is just relationships with your coworkers. Are you helpful? Are you a problem solver? Are you taking the initiative to get something done without someone standing over you being like this and this needs
Yeah.
to be done? Because that's exactly like that was what caught my boss's attention at the time. I We had a whole whack of new students coming in for their summer jobs kind of thing. And I just took them all under my wing and I was like, okay, guys, this is how this works here. And, made sure that I had kind of like one-on-one check-ins with them once a weekish just to see how they were kind of fitting in. And I felt at the time that it coming from a colleague was a little less intimidating than coming from their boss, especially because so many of these kids, like, 18, 19-year-olds,
Yeah.
were coming in and, you know, your boss isn't your teacher. And so I don't know what it is, but there's a little bit more like intimidation
Yes.
from a boss. And so I was just like, are you struggling with something? Like, can I help you get through something. Um, you know, Standing up, like I said, I was in the hotel industry. Like when someone starts screaming, because they always do, there's always that one person that starts screaming at the front desk agent because it's the front
Because
desk
that's going to
agent
help
made the
everything.
rules.
Always does. It works
Right.
flawlessly every time.
Right. And so it's just like stepping in and being like, I understand that you're upset, but we do not tolerate being spoken to that way. So we
Yeah.
are more than happy to work with you as soon as you have calmed down.
Yeah.
But like kind of being a defense between them. And that's really that's what caught my boss's attention was like, maybe we should give her her first supervisor promotion and then just keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Don't
keep
stop.
doing it.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, don't stop, right? Like, leadership is a journey, it's momentum. You got to keep going, keep doing it. And so it's not just like I'm going to go in today and I am going to, show so and so how to do whatever. No, no. Every day. What are you going to do today that's going to help somebody else?
Yep.
What are you going to do today that's going to help somebody else, make somebody else better? Because whether you know it or not, in turn, you're making yourself better,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
By doing that.
I
So,
always call that the ripple, right? So, my approach to that is every action that you have or you take on behalf of someone gives you the opportunity to really make a positive difference or a negative difference, right? You can make
mm,
good or bad ripples, but if you're intentional about making that impact on a daily basis, and
mhm,
that's the goal, like you said, and I love how you phrased it, is the act of doing it certainly is huge for the person that you're doing it for. And they will remember that because I still
mhm,
remember a lot of people taking a lot of extra time to help and guide me throughout, those early days of my career.
mhm,
But it feels amazing when you also know that you made a difference and you made an impact. And I think one of the things that I always encourage leaders to do is you've got to find those leadership reward moments that every day
right?
and every single day strive to make a couple of impacts, and then go back through your day, maybe as you lay your head on the pillow that at night, and you say, how'd I do, right? How's my
Right.
self-assessment?
Well, you
Just the
gotta get
just
you
you know
almost
go
gotta
ahead.
get more excited for
Yeah.
their successes than your own, right?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta get really excited. I do, like, when someone else does something so for instance, I was coaching this one guy, he was a front desk agent, he'd been promoted into a supervisor role, and at a different hotel, a manager's role had come up, and he's like, "Do you think I have what it takes?" And I was like, "It's gonna be a learning curve, but yeah, I do think you've got the potential to crush the role. Um, but it is going to be a huge learning curve. And so I coached him through the interview process. He ended up getting the job. I coached him through the first 3 months of his job. And I was like, every time I talked to him, I was like, yes, like,
Yeah.
yes, you did it. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Like, and I know that I did good work too, but I don't really even care that I did good
Yeah.
work. I'm just
Yep.
so stinking proud of what he accomplished.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're a leader and you have that pride of ownership in what their outcome is, which I think is really what leadership is all about. It's making your people better. I tell
Mhm.
people I own a software company in addition to what I do for Ripple, but always tell people I might be the CEO, but I really consider myself the CDG. I'm the chief dumb guy, right? So I, I bring in the most brilliant, amazing people to do stuff, and they make me look good because of it. So there is that ancillary benefit. But I'm really, really particular about who I want on my team and how
Mhm.
they are going to represent the company, and of course me, and everything that we do. The fact that you're in hospitality, certainly tracks and aligns with why you're a really good coach, because you see the best and worst of people, right? In those environments. And I grew up sort of fancying myself as a really kind of a customer service geek, because I love delighting people, and I love turning really negative situations into positives, where you have somebody
Mhm.
who, like you said, might be screaming or yelling or just very unhappy. And by the end, they're like, I'm so darn glad that, I'm still doing business with you, or that I
Yeah,
showed up at, whatever.
yeah.
And those things, I tell everybody, we're not in the software business. We're in the customer service business. We're in the relationship business. And I think that when you look at organizations across the board, they certainly need more of what you're training on, because there is a serious lack of it for a lot of companies. And it really, I think, comes down to leaders not knowing how to do that themselves, not knowing how to navigate those conversations and really truly train those people when you start from, because your experience really sort of fostered how you look at the world and how you go about sort of doing what you do, and does the same for me, being able to apply it and then seeing those wins or the payoffs, whether it's turning a bad customer situation into a good one, or seeing, like, that individual you were just speaking of just blossom and take off in their career. It's like
Yeah.
it's like addictive. It's so
It
good, and it's
really is.
it's so
It
awesome.
really is, yeah. Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead, go
Sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say I have a pillow,
A pillow. Okay.
that I keep in my office at work, um, and it says calm is a superpower.
Oh,
Um, and the guy that I was coaching, he was the first one, he was my first. Um, the reason I really wanted to help him so bad is because he loved that saying so much, and I was like, "I have that pillow, honestly, to remind me to just cool my jets.
yeah.
Cool your jets, take a breath. Calm is a superpower, calm is a superpower. Do
Oh,
not match the energy that is coming at you."
I love that. That should
Yeah.
be the title of your book.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
I hope it's not trademarked.
Yeah.
I hope nobody else has that yet.
You just call it, the Meghan Potter system of, calm as a
There
superpower. And you're good. You're covered.
we go. Perfect.
How did you make the change from being in the hospitality space to saying, hey, look, I want to take these superpowers and
Mhm.
apply them for the good in all these other arenas? How did you get into coaching?
I was on maternity leave, actually,
Okay.
and as much as I love being in the hotel world, it is not conducive timing-wise, and time commitment-wise
Yep.
with a tiny. Manageable with older kids that can be in daycare, after school care, or in
Sure.
school during the days, all of that kind of stuff. But with a little, it's a little harder. And so I was really struggling with, okay, do I go back to my hotel job or do I do something else? And it's like, if I do something else, what's that going to be?
Yeah.
What's that going to be like? Ugh, world's expensive, still need to make some money. Like,
Baby
we are
needs
not in
diapers. I mean, we got,
right. Diapers are expensive.
yes, they are.
And so, I really thought about it. I used to, like, one of my hobby passions, is photography, love photography. I was like, "Hey, do I wanna, like, pursue that passion and turn that passion into money, like, into a job?" And I was like, "You know what? No, not really." Like, I like doing it, like, I really like doing it, and I like the process of taking the photo and processing the photo and then having a beautiful photo at the end, but no, I don't want that to be my job. I feel like it'll take away the
Yeah.
joy.
Then it just
Uh,
becomes a job, and it's not something you
then
love
it
anymore.
becomes a
Yeah.
job, exactly, and so I was thinking about it, and I was like, "You know what I really should be doing is I really should be helping people figure out how to be that first time manager."
Yeah.
Because when I look back at my career, that was the hardest struggle that I went through. It wasn't entering the workforce and like navigating that. It wasn't getting the next management job. It was that first job where it was like, okay, I got to deal with these people, but I've also got to like learn how to deal with myself, and I need
Yeah.
to learn some emotional intelligence, and I need to learn, how to put my problems aside to help other people. And that was the hardest part. And I was like, and I cannot be the only one that struggled.
Yeah.
I cannot be the only one. And then, thought about it some more and I was like, there there are no programs, and the programs that I have found and have done, they're all the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
They all kind of like do this like umbrella, highbrow overview of what leadership means, but they don't actually get into like, okay, how am I supposed to give somebody some negative feedback and have them receive it?
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to have this conversation that I'm shaking nervous about having to begin with? Like, how do I tell them that what they did is not what we're looking for without them being like, I am the worst person in the world? Because they're not, right?
Yeah.
Like, just the product of this one task is not what we were looking for, right? Like, that is not who you are. Like, nobody teaches you that,
No,
right? Like, I was just like, you know what? That's what I want to do.
that's
I
awesome.
talked to some family. My brother is my best friend. He is in a director level position of his own, and he was like, "Yo, Megan, like if someone would have done that for me, I would have had a few more nights of sleep. Like I wouldn't have gone home and stayed awake all night going, I cannot believe that's how I handled that situation.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
cannot believe it." And, talk my parents both have, great jobs, and talked to them, they're like, "No, Megan, you'd be really good at it." And then I just expanded out into some friends and some colleagues, and I was like, "Do you think this is something like, am I qualified?" Essentially. Am I qualified to be doing this?
Yeah.
And, I don't know if it was people were like, didn't want to say no and be unsupportive, but everyone was like, "No, that would be a really good thing for you to do, especially since you do come at the leadership approach just so calmly and like just okay, let's take a breath, let's look at the big picture. What's How are we going to navigate through this?" I'm not saying I'm perfect and I know everything, still learning.
Yeah.
But I forget what the question was. I started going off on a
Yeah. No, that was
tangent.
perfect. Yeah. Just how you got into coaching. I mean, that
Yeah,
was, yeah.
yeah, maternity leave, and just yeah, and decided not to go back to my job and started doing this, and slow go at first. But it has allowed for it has allowed for me to be more present in my family life. Um, I actually took on a part-time job, um, just so that I could talk to people. But I can do that, right? Like I can
Yep.
work 4 hours a day and talk to other people and, you know, get out of my house and still do this and still
Yeah.
balance the family, and it just seems to work really well for us, at least right now.
That's good. I mean, yeah, I often see people, that you just have this gut feeling they're either misaligned with the work that they're doing or they haven't quite figured it out. That was something I love the fact that you just communicated that because that's exactly how I was feeling, not only just following you on Instagram, but just in this conversation. There are certain people that are destined to do great things. You,
Mhm.
without question, are destined to do great things. You have
Thank you.
such a calming nature. I mean, I'm like, hell, I need you to coach me. I mean, you're just so you're very I love the pillow saying because you bring that into the conversation, and I want our audience to know we actually have never met prior to today. We, interacted back and
Mhm.
forth, and this was, sort of a leap of faith on your part to come on this show from this guy you didn't even know, and yet you were cordial and you were kind and very responsive and follow up. But then to get in this conversation, I feel like I've known you for 20 years, and
Aw.
that's a quality that I think not everybody, especially a lot of coaches, do not have. So I
Mhm.
can see why you're successful and why it's, starting to really gin up for you because you deserve it. And
Thanks.
you are destined to, continue to grow this business because I think more and more people need to know about your approach and the work that you do. But at the end of the day, I think if they spent 5 minutes with you, they'll be like, I found it. I found my coach. This is who I need to be talking to. So
I had a lady yesterday reach out to me on Instagram. She's like, "Where have you been my entire corporate life?" I was like, "I've been here, girl. Been
yeah,
right here.
it's just been waiting for you to find me. I mean,
How are you? What can I
yeah,
do
yeah,
for
yeah.
you?"
It's the algorithm finally brought us together. It's great.
Right? Exactly.
Well, speaking of Instagram, that's how I first, you first landed on my radar. You do a really, really good job with your videos. They're interesting, they're impactful, they're eye-catching. The topics that you do about how to give or receive feedback, how to show up and lead, but let your people, figure out what they need to be doing to lead. I love all of your approaches. How did you get going in that sort of that space and what's been the experience thus far? Is it, are people beating a path to your door because of these posts or what, what's your experience been thus far on social media?
Um, Bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. Kind of up and down. It was really slow to start. I just started. Honestly, there was no, I was like, I can think about this as much as I want, but thinking about it's not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
So I just started, and if you go all the way back to the beginning, they're awkward. They're awkward posts, the awkward captions, what trying to figure out like what my voice was gonna be, what my style was gonna be, what I wanted to talk about. Like, because when I went into it, I had like 1,000 ideas.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, over the course of time, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We just got to start. So we just started. Um, and so yeah, we've gone through some ebbs and flows. We were really slow for a while, but we have recently had an upswing, which is really nice. I went into it with very low expectations that I would get anywhere with it. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna try. I'm on maternity leave, so why
Sure.
not? Right? And I'm just gonna give it a shot and see what happens. And
Look what happened.
look what happened. Like when people
I mean,
are
you have
like,
over 16,000 people following you on Instagram. I mean, it's just insane. I love it though.
I
I know exactly why they follow you because it's the same reason I followed you. I'm like, okay, I love the content, I love the energy, the vibe, but I really love you. I mean, I like you, I like what
thank
you bring
you.
into the world, and I think that the world is responding and showing up in kind because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. It does feel good. It does feel good to be doing this. Like there doesn't feel like there's any resistance,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
the best.
that's huge, I feel like most people feel resistance until
Yeah,
they something clicks and they find their sweet spot.
yeah,
So,
I agree.
I just at the beginning, I was the resistance. But yeah, no, I think now that we're kind of into a swing and we've got a little bit of a system happening and a pattern and a rhythm that we can create this content and then, be building more things on the back end for in the future. And, um, my hope is to be able to help as many people, even if you can't afford a coach, right? Like,
Yep,
how can I help you if you can't afford a coach? Well, I can write down all of my ideas and give
yep,
them to you, and well, I read books and started to figure it out. So
yeah,
you can read books and start to figure
yeah,
it out.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah, just it feels good to be aligned with what we're
Yeah,
doing.
I love it. And I did look back at some of your earlier, videos. I don't see the awkwardness. But I was there. I know exactly. Don't go look at any of my stuff, please, because I am awkward all the freaking time.
Yeah.
But you could tell like something shifted a little bit in your content, and I could see that the topics that you started to, or over the course of, let's say the last few months, really, really hone in on areas that you you're casting a wide net in certain capacities, but it is actually really, really beautiful in terms of his strategy because almost every one of your posts applies to just about anybody out there. And I love the fact that, there's a strong concentration for women in helping them figure out what they need to do to become the leaders that they are destined to become. But
Mhm.
at the same time, your content is benefiting, both men and women. And I think that's
That's
just
true.
a real credit for you, credit to your creativity and the approach that you take for
Thank
doing the
you.
post. Is Instagram the only area that you're putting your time and energy in? And if so, why is that the only one as opposed to the other platforms?
At the moment, yes. Contemplated TikTok for a while, but at the time it was like, is TikTok gonna be here or not? Like,
Now
I
we're
don't
back to that.
know.
Could go away in June. We have no
Right.
idea
And
what
I was just
that's.
like, you know what? I'm not gonna put the effort into something that might not exist
Yeah,
in a couple months. So I avoided TikTok. We are on the back end, starting to build out what will eventually be a YouTube channel, with
good.
some longer form content and whatnot. Um, to be honest, I just have to get more comfortable being in front of a camera. I get in front of a camera and I'm like, and it's like my script's right in front of me.
Yeah,
You can just read your script that you wrote, but
yeah.
I go, ooh. So
Been there,
we
done
are
that.
right,
Yeah,
we are going to get there. We will
yeah,
get there, but the goal is to have a YouTube channel soon, and then I think that will probably be it for the social media
yeah.
point. YouTube is a huge undertaking,
It
for that
is.
longer
Yep.
form content, just from the editing side of things. If I can get through the if I can stumble through my scripts, the editing is what's gonna take the longest time. So,
Well,
um,
think
yeah.
about it too, because you're doing such a great job on Instagram Reels that Shorts maybe is a good way to get that, that following started. It blows me away how many people actually reach out to me off my Shorts, but they never watch or pay attention to the long form content. So they YouTube's done a pretty good job of trying to implement, an alternative to Reels.
Mhm,
And once that algorithm figures out what you're really into, and especially in professional or personal improvement or, figuring out development of the skill sets to be a better human, better worker, whatever,
mhm,
it's really good at serving that up once that content that you create is out there. Because I have a friend that says that YouTube pays really close attention to what Instagram is trending and how it's working. And so the fact that you're doing and killing it over there, I think that's a natural for you for YouTube. I think not only will they follow you, to that platform as well, but that when you're ready for the long form content, the audience is already built in and ready for you. So I
yeah.
think
My
you'll have
brother
no
said the
problem with that
exact
transition.
same thing to me last week.
Yeah,
The exact same thing. He's like, "Megan, why aren't you?" And I was
yeah,
like, "It just feels like it's another, like, thing I have to do, another undertaking." He's like, "Use the same videos. Use the same videos, use the same captions. Just start posting them over there too for the people who refuse to have Instagram."
yeah.
And, I was like, "Oh, I guess I could do that."
Could do
Maybe.
that.
Yeah. He's like I was talking to him last night, and he's like, "So have you started?" I was like, "No, I haven't started."
Well, now I'll hold you accountable too. So now you got
Yeah.
2 people. They're gonna be
Now I
like,
got 2 people.
"What's the best thing about being a coach in your opinion?"
Watching other people succeed,
I love that.
honestly. Watching other people go after their dreams and get what they want. I just love it. I absolutely love it. I think it is so cool to watch someone put in their work, um, and then be rewarded for it.
I love it. I love it. I could talk to you all day. I love everything about what you're doing out there in the world, and we're definitely gonna have to do a follow-up episode at some point. But I want to be respectful of your weekend and in time with your family. So I want to wrap up if you're okay with it. I always ask a few ripple connection questions here at the end, just
Okay.
to kind of give people a sense of kind of who you are as an individual.
Okay.
Are you good with that?
Yeah, that's great.
All right, cool. There's no gotcha questions, I promise. So
Good, good.
I should do that sometime just to make it a little bit interesting, but I won't do that today. But what did the 7-year-old version of Megan want to be when she grew up?
Ooh. Okay, 7. So grade 3. I think I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
I think I wanted to be I really liked my grade 3 teacher. To this day, I still know his name. I still remember some of, like, the lessons and the classes that we did. I think I wanted to be a teacher. That or a vet.
Oh, those are good.
That
Those
or a
are
vet. I can't
And look what you're
remember.
doing now. Technically, through your coaching, you are teaching people,
Yeah.
coping skills and how to show up, as their authentic selves in the workplace. You sort of, tick that box probably unknowingly, but well done. So,
Thank you.
what do you like to do? Coaching when you're absorbing so many individual situations can be super stressful and can
Mhm.
wear on you as a coach. So, how do you decompress? What do you do to just focus on Megan's, mental and physical health.
Family time, a lot of it, and going for walks, especially once the weather turns nice again, like when it's
Yeah.
not minus 40 degrees outside.
So you're
Um,
you're not doing walks at minus 40 degrees?
no,
It's
no, I don't usually do walks like I usually don't do walks below 0.
probably
Yeah.
a good rule. I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I used to live in the Canadian Rockies, and winter didn't bother me living there. I
Yeah.
think it was probably because there were so many things to do outside, and so you just kind of bundled up and dealt with the
Yeah.
cold. But now that I live in a city, there's not as much to do. I really don't like going outside in the cold.
Yeah.
Why put myself through that? If I like being warm and cozy, let's stay warm and cozy. Um, so yeah, so going for walks when I can, especially solo walks, those are really nice. With just music, like not
Yeah.
learning anything, not listening, just be
I
kind of
love that.
thing.
Yeah.
And then family time. I love playing with my kids. I love just hanging out with my man, just being.
Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
When you're on your walks, what kind of music, really does it for you when you're listening?
Okay, don't judge me, but
Okay.
I love country music.
All right.
I get
Why
a
would
lot of
I
judgment
why
for that
would I
one, but I
judge you?
love country music.
I'm in Texas. What do you I mean, that's
I tell people that was one of the things when I first met my partner, he was like, "Country music? Really?
ugh.
Really?" And I'm like, "Love me or leave me."
Yeah. Yeah. Who's your favorite country artist?
Oh, probably Thomas Rhett.
Yeah? Ah,
Yeah, I'm a
it's a good
longtime
one.
fan,
Yeah.
longtime fan. He came to town, like, 2 weeks before my son was born, so I missed his concert. I was
Oh,
so sad. I don't know when he'll be back,
well,
but
I'm not gonna say that he's a show of the a fan of the show, but if he is, Thomas, you need to get back up there. Let's go.
come to Saskatoon, please.
Yeah, come on. Oh, I love that. When, was there someone that actually played a significant role in helping you become the awesome person you are today?
Uh, a lot of people, honestly. The obvious of my parents, my mom and dad were amazing role models. I'm the first daughter, first granddaughter, first everything on both sides of the family. Um, and my parents they were young. They weren't super young, early 20s, but they were young. And so, I watched my parents build their careers and I watched them juggle. I was a competitive springboard diver, so I was in the pool 36 hours a week. My brother was a
Wow.
hockey player. He was on the ice 30 hours a week, and somehow they managed to build their careers and support us in our passions and our sports. They were there for all the games and all the competitions and all the school events, and so I watched them be able to juggle it all. They had their bad days. We all have our bad days.
Yeah.
But the good days, like, far outshine, right? Like, I remember those way more. I had a couple really awesome teachers, a couple really awesome university professors who, you know, let me tag along.
Yeah.
They just let me tag along. I went to a teeny tiny school, which was amazing. My classes were like 20 to 30 kids. And when you didn't understand something, you went to the professor's house. and
That's
got
awesome.
extra help in their living room,
Yeah.
right? Like, not their office hours, and I had a couple professors that were doing big things within the school, and I was like, "Hey, can I come? Can I do that
Yeah.
with you?" And they were like, "Sure, come along." And I got to watch them be leaders in their own way.
That's cool.
And then I think, I don't think a lot of people give too much credit, but I think my kids honestly have played a huge role,
Yeah.
have played a huge role in helping shape who I am. I always considered myself a patient person. I really consider myself a patient person now, like I've got an almost 16-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, we juggle a lot around here,
Yeah.
and I, they have made me a better person through all of our challenges and all of our fun. So,
I love that. I love that.
yeah.
So, speaking of your kids, if you were to think about the legacy that you would leave behind when they think of you, what do you want them to think and communicate to others about what they learned
Mm.
from you?
I hope what they learn from me is how to be kind to everyone around them, um, and how to keep an open mind. Um, but yes, you can have your opinions and your perspectives, but be open and willing for those to change.
Yeah.
Uh, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I never would have told you that I'd be a stepmom.
Yeah.
You know, um, it is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
That's
Is
great.
is to join this family. So yeah, just keep an open mind. That one, be willing to pivot. Be willing to pivot.
I love
Failure isn't necessarily failure. It might just be the universe taking your path in its hands and redirecting you because you got comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, you got comfortable, and the greater plan for you was not to be staying this path. You are meant to be over here. You're not going there yourself. All right. We're going to throw a hurdle in your way that might suck. That hurdle might suck. It might be a gut punch,
Yeah.
but it's usually a blessing in disguise. And so
Yeah.
to embrace that pivot, just kind of go with it, open mind, and then yeah, be kind. I think I'm doing well with that one. I think my kids are kind.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And such great wisdom. What would you like people who have never thought about hiring a coach, specifically the women that follow this show that might think, hey, I like what Megan has to say. What is it that you could tell them that might say, hey, let me reach out and learn a little bit more, or maybe explore coaching and what it could do for my life and my career?
Hmm. With my clients, everything is tailored to their journey, to their goals, to their aspirations. Um, and I want you to show up uniquely yourself, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want you to show up trying to check all of these boxes you think you're supposed to check. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Let's make that, let's make who you are grander. You
Yeah.
know, like, you know, I'm unapologetically weird. It's the weird people who go far, the people who try and like people please and stay in the box and do the things they're supposed to do are the ones that stay stuck. Just
Yep.
be unapologetically you,
I love that.
and we will tailor your coaching and your journey to that weirdness.
That's awesome. That
Mhm.
that that is really, really powerful. All right, last two questions. When you hear the words the ripple effect, what does that conjure up for you?
I every time you say it, I picture a pebble in the water, just out it goes. Um, you know, one one small act can have such a huge impact.
Yep.
Huge impact, You go into work in a bad mood and you snap at the first person you see, your entire team is having a bad day.
Yeah.
You go into work in a bad mood and you go, "Hey guys, I didn't sleep last night. The cat puked on the carpet. I witnessed a car accident, stubbed my toe coming into the building. Just, it's not going my way." And people are going to be like, "Okay,
Yeah.
so how can we help you?" Just like, yeah, simply stating, "Okay, guys, I'm having a really crappy
Yeah.
day today," can really save everybody having a crappy day.
Yeah.
Um, but in the same token, simply saying, "You did a really great job on that task. Thank you so much. That made my life easier, or so and so's life easier, or whatever." That person's going to feel good. And so they are more likely to go on to make someone else feel good.
Yep.
And then now you've got two people making people feel good, making four people, and so on and so on. And suddenly you have a happy work environment or a
Yeah.
happy home or whatever.
It is amazing how those things work, right? Both positive and also negative, and it's really
Mm.
powerful for folks to learn that, everything you do has an impact on the people you work with, the people you lead, people that you're meeting for the first time, or people that might just see you having the meltdown in front of the desk at the hotel. People will pay attention. You might actually become like a TikTok video if you do the latter, but
Oh, favorite is when you think the one person's losing it at the
yeah,
front desk, and then someone else comes up to you later after that person's left, and they're like, "So, can I have the tea? Like, what just happened?"
yeah,
They're like, "That seemed really dramatic. Are you guys okay?"
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
We know it wasn't you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I can think of so many different scenarios where that has played out, and then having that conversation and walking up to him and saying, "You handled that like a champ, and it's
Mhm.
why I fly this airline, or why I stay at this hotel, or why I go to this
Oh,
organization, because you know
right?
not everybody is a jerk like that."
No, and I feel like more people need to get into the habit and more comfortable with saying things to like that
Yes.
to employers.
Yeah.
And like, let's get more comfortable saying, "Hey, can I speak to your manager?" To give a
Yep.
compliment, right? Like, "Hey, can I
Yes.
speak to your manager?" And then when the manager comes out, be like, "I just wanted to tell you, I think your staff is phenomenal.
Yep.
They've been so helpful and so kind, and even if something's going wrong, they've kept me in the loop. They've kept me up to date on the changes. They're checking in to make sure I'm okay." Like, let's get more comfortable with telling people they're doing a good job.
Yep, I agree 100%. I think that's the ultimate ripple for sure. Okay, last question. What ripple can I be looking to create for you?
Goodness. I think just being on this podcast, to be honest. Yeah,
You might
getting
think we have a
to
much bigger audience than we do. I just don't want to like over.
No, but you might have a different audience.
Yeah,
So I get to showcase my thoughts to new people, which could honestly have a great benefit for them and for me and for you. Um, yeah, yeah. This is my first podcast recording.
oh, no way.
Yeah.
Really?
So, um, I have a goal. I haven't put a timeline on it, but I have a goal of being on 100 podcasts. So when your
And I get to
request
be
came
number
in,
one?
you
All
guys
right.
be number one. When your request came in, I nearly fell off my couch. I was
No
so
kidding.
excited. I was so excited. Um,
Oh, that makes me feel
yeah,
so good. That's awesome. I will help you find those other podcasts, because I know a lots of
perfect.
people that need to know you, because you are freaking awesome. So,
Oh, thank you so
you
much.
would never know that this was your first podcast. You were like a seasoned pro. It's perfect.
Oh, good. I was a little
Just before
nervous.
we wrap up, how would you like people to follow you? We talked about Instagram, and I'm assuming that's the direction you might want to push people, but I'll let you share that.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. And then if you want a little bit more from me, I do have an email subscription list that you can sign up through my Instagram bio. And I send out an email once a week. I choose a topic every week and kind of just go further in depth than what my Instagram posts go into. Get a little bit more detailed into them. Um, hoping to provide a little bit more guidance and support through situations, not just like, okay, when you're having a feedback conversation, make sure that everybody's calm and in a good headspace. It's like, okay, but this is actually what that means and how we're going to do that.
I love that. I love that. And that handle is at lead like a lady underscore, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Hmm.
perfect. And I just want to personally say thank you so much for being here, being on the show. I mean, you are a very inspirational person. You are doing great work, creating really, really positive ripples out there in the world. You're stuck with me as a friend, so we're definitely going to have to do a follow-up episode. And I will always, I'm going to go get a hat printed up that says I was number one for your podcast 100. So I think that's
I
so
love
awesome.
it.
I
I
don't think
love it.
I've never been anybody's number one on anything. So I'm
Oh,
like,
there you
I'm
go.
gonna go celebrate. This is
There
awesome.
you go.
So, but no, in all seriousness, I really appreciate all the positivity and everything you're doing, and just how great you've made this experience, not just today, but even leading up to it. So if I can help you in any way, don't hesitate. I know my Ripplers are absolutely going to fall in love with you and want to learn more. And so we will definitely try and create as many positive ripples for your coaching business as we can. I
Oh,
just want to say
thank you.
thank you. And, I'm just really honored that you agreed to do this.
Well, thank you for asking me to come on. I felt very special as well. Um,
That's awesome.
it's been super awesome. It's been a great conversation. This has been super fun, and I will take the friendship.
All right, deal. All right, done. And we'll
Deal.
keep it going. We'll keep it going. So we'll come back
Perfect.
again with another episode very soon. But guys, we'll be back with another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast very soon. But until then, Megan, ripple on.
You too.